Excuse me, girl. This isn't the welfare line. First class is for people who can actually afford it. Flight attendant Janelle Williams towered over the elegant black woman in seat 2, her voice cutting through the cabin like a blade. Every passenger within earshot froze. The woman looked up from her tablet, dark eyes unblinking. "I have a first-class ticket," Dr. Kesha Washington replied softly, reaching into her blazer. Janelle snatched the boarding pass, examined it with theatrical suspicion, then slapped it back against Kesha's chest with deliberate force. The sound echoed through the cabin like a gunshot. "Don't try to scam your way up here, honey." Other passengers turned to stare. Kesha adjusted her simple blazer, a flash of an expensive watch catching the light. She remained seated, unmoving. Have you ever been so underestimated that people couldn't see the power right in front of them? 10 minutes until takeoff. "I have a first-class ticket," Dr. Kesha Washington said quietly, extending her boarding pass. Janelle snatched it like she was confiscating contraband. She held it up to the light, squinting dramatically. "MHM, sure you do." She turned to the cabin, voice rising. "Y'all, we got another one trying to sneak into first class." The businessman in 1C immediately pulled out his phone, finger hovering over the record button. The elderly white woman in 1D whispered to her husband, "They always try this nonsense." Janelle flipped her phone to selfie mode, starting a live stream. "Hey everyone, it's your girl Janelle dealing with some drama up here in first class. This woman thinks she can just sit wherever she wants." The viewer count climbed. 234789 people watching in real time. "Security to gate 12A." Janelle announced into her headset, never breaking eye contact with Kesha. "We have a passenger refusing to move to her assigned seat." Kesha remained motionless. When she reached for her wallet, a platinum American Express Centurion card caught the light. The businessman scoffed. "Probably stolen," he muttered to his seatmate. Her phone buzzed. "Tell the board I'll be 20 minutes late," she said calmly into the device. Janelle rolled her eyes theatrically for her live stream audience. "Oh, she's got board meetings now. Probably works at McDonald's corporate." The chat filled with laughing emojis and worse. The young Latina woman in 3B shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. She'd been there before. Heavy footsteps echoed up the jet bridge. 2 security officers boarded, their bulk filling the narrow aisle. Officer Martinez, the lead, didn't even glance at Kesha before addressing Janelle. "What's the situation? This passenger is in the wrong seat. She's refusing to move to coach where she belongs." Janelle's voice carried the practiced authority of someone who'd done this before. Officer Martinez finally looked at Kesha. She sat perfectly still, designer handbag in her lap, a Hermes Birkin that cost more than most people's cars. He assumed it was fake. "Ma'am, we're gonna need you to gather your things." 8 minutes until takeoff. Kesha's fingers moved across her phone screen, sending 3 quick messages. The recipients, her assistant, her legal team, and someone listed simply as board chair personal. The businessman was now openly recording, his phone aimed at Kesha. "This is what entitlement looks like," he narrated quietly, trying to sit in first class without paying for it. His video went live on X with the hashtag #firstclassfraud. Within minutes, it had 47 retweets. A flight attendant from coach peered into first class. "Need backup, Janelle?" "Nah, security's handling it." "But thanks, girl." Janelle winked at her live stream. The viewer count hit 156. The middle-aged black man in 4C stood halfway up. "Excuse me, this doesn't seem right. The lady has her boarding pass." "Sir, please remain seated," Officer Martinez warned sharply. The elderly woman turned around, her voice dripping with false concern. "Honey, she's obviously trying to scam her way up here. We've all seen it before." More passengers began choosing sides. A young white woman in 2C looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. The businessman's seatmate nodded approvingly. "Finally, someone's doing something about this." "Ma'am." Officer Martinez stepped closer. "We need to resolve this quickly. The flight needs to depart." Kesha looked up at him with the same calm expression she'd worn since boarding. "I'm waiting for the captain to review the situation." Janelle's live stream chat exploded. Make her show receipts. Drag her off. Why do they always play victim? Girl, the captain doesn't have time for your games. Janelle snapped. Security. Please escort her off so we can get these paying customers to their destination. The elderly woman nodded approvingly. Finally, someone with sense. Officer Martinez reached for his radio. Ground control, we may need a gate return for passenger removal. 6 minutes until takeoff. That's when Senior Flight Manager Derek Jenkins appeared at the aircraft door. His pressed uniform and clipboard commanded immediate respect from the crew. Janelle quickly minimized her live stream, but kept it running. What's the delay? Jenkins asked, scanning the cabin. Passenger in the wrong seat, sir. Janelle replied, her voice suddenly professional, refusing to move to coach. Jenkins looked at Kesha, taking in her composed posture and expensive accessories. Something flickered in his expression. Not recognition, but calculation. This woman didn't fit the typical profile. Ma'am, may I see your boarding pass and identification? For the first time, Kesha smiled slightly. Of course. She handed over both documents. Jenkins examined them carefully, his brow furrowing. The boarding pass showed Seat 2A, first class, purchased 3 days ago for $2,847. The ID read Dr. Kesha Washington with an address in Buckhead, Atlanta's most exclusive district. But Jenkins had worked airlines for 15 years. He'd seen sophisticated scams before. Rich people usually travel with obvious entourages or flashy displays of wealth. This woman's understated confidence seemed calculated. These documents appear legitimate, but we've had issues with high-quality forgeries recently. I'll need to verify through our central system. The businessman's video had reached 189 shares. Comments poured in. Why is this taking so long? Just remove her already. Typical airline incompetence. A second flight attendant, Marcus, arrived from the galley. Captain Rodriguez is asking about the delay. Tower is getting impatient. Jenkins pulled out his tablet, accessing the airline's passenger database. The system showed Dr. Kesha Washington with gold status, but her flight history seemed limited for someone with such expensive accessories. Ma'am, our records indicate some irregularities with your booking. Did you purchase this ticket directly or through a third party? It was a fishing expedition, but Jenkins needed something concrete to justify the delay. Kesha's phone buzzed with responses to her earlier messages. 3 quick confirmations flashed on screen. She glanced at them, then placed the phone face down on her tray table. I purchased it directly through your website, she replied calmly. Would you like the confirmation number? For minutes until takeoff. The young Latina woman in 3B finally found her voice. I saw her boarding pass when she got on. It definitely said first class. The black man in 4C nodded. I saw it too. Clear as day. Jenkins felt control slipping. Multiple witnesses were contradicting his crew's narrative, but he'd committed to his position in front of everyone. Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled over the intercom. Flight crew, we need immediate resolution on the passenger issue. Tower's threatening to reassign our slot. The pressure was mounting from all sides. Jenkins made his choice. Ma'am, given the circumstances and the flight delay, I'm going to have to ask you to deplane for additional verification. We can rebook you on the next available flight. That's when Kesha Washington reached into her blazer with deliberate precision. What she pulled out would change everything. 3 minutes until takeoff. What Kesha pulled from her blazer wasn't a weapon or a document. It was a simple black leather business card holder. She extracted one card and placed it face down on her tray table, her fingers resting gently on top. Mr. Jenkins, before you make any irreversible decisions, I suggest you call Captain Rodriguez to the cabin personally. Jenkins glanced at the hidden card, then back at her face. Ma'am, I have full authority here. The captain has delegated passenger issues to senior management. I understand, but some decisions require the captain's direct attention. Officer Martinez stepped closer. Ma'am, we need to resolve this now. Please gather your belongings. Janelle's live stream had climbed to 287 viewers. She kept the camera low, whispering commentary. Y'all, she's stalling now, probably trying to think of another lie. The businessman's video had gone viral in aviation forums. Hashtag first-class fraud was trending in Atlanta Airport's local feeds. Comments flooded in. Why is this taking so long? Just drag her off. Airport security is too soft these days. A third flight attendant, Sarah, emerged from the cockpit area. Mr. Jenkins, Captain Rodriguez needs an immediate status update. Ground control is threatening to cancel our departure slot. The pressure was mounting from multiple directions. Jenkins looked around the cabin at the sea of recording phones and frustrated faces. 2 minutes until takeoff. That's it, Jenkins announced loudly. Ma'am, you have 10 seconds to comply voluntarily, or security will assist your removal. The elderly woman clapped softly. About time someone showed some backbone. But the black man in 4C stood up fully. Now, this is ridiculous. She has a valid ticket. I saw it myself. Sir, sit down immediately, or you'll be removed as well. Officer Martinez warned. A ripple of tension swept through the cabin. Other passengers began shifting uncomfortably. The young Latina woman looked around nervously. A middle-aged white businessman in 3A started recording on his phone, too. This is getting out of hand, someone muttered from the back. Janelle's live-stream chat was exploding. Her viewer count hit 341. This is better than reality TV, one comment read. Why won't she just leave? Asked another. Kesha's phone buzzed again. This time, the caller ID showed legal emergency line. She declined the call without looking up. Jenkins noticed the caller ID and felt his first real flutter of uncertainty. Emergency legal lines weren't something random passengers typically had access to. Ma'am, final warning. Remove yourself from this aircraft immediately. That's when Captain Rodriguez's voice boomed over the intercom, cutting through the tension like a blade. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Due to an operational issue, we'll be experiencing a brief additional delay. Flight attendants, please pause all departure preparations. Jenkins frowned. He hadn't requested a pause. If anything, he needed to expedite this removal to make their departure slot. Sarah, the flight attendant from the cockpit, approached Jenkins with a concerned expression. Sir, the captain specifically requested to speak with you in the cockpit immediately. I can't leave right now. We're in the middle of a passenger removal. Sir, he said immediately, and he asked about the passenger in 2A specifically. Jenkins felt the ground shifting beneath him. How did the captain know about seat 2A? He'd only mentioned a passenger issue in his reports. The businessman recording from 1C caught this exchange on camera. His video now had 312 shares and was being picked up by local news aggregators. 1 minute past scheduled takeoff. Officer Martinez maintained the situation here. I'll be right back, Jenkins said, but his confidence was wavering. As he headed toward the cockpit, Kesha finally lifted her fingers from the business card. For just a moment, the gold-embossed text caught the light. The businessman in 1C zoomed in with his camera, but couldn't quite make out the details. The young Latino woman in 3B had a better angle. Her eyes widened as she read the card. She looked from the card to Kesha's calm face, then back to the card. Her mouth fell open slightly. Oh my God, she whispered so quietly that only the black man in 4C heard her. What? He asked. She just shook her head, unable to find words. Janelle noticed the exchange. What's everyone looking at? She probably printed some fake business card on her home printer, but her live stream viewers were asking questions now. Can you get closer to see the card? What does it say? This is getting weird. Officer Martinez remained focused on his job. Ma'am, regardless of whatever card you have, you need to comply with crew instructions. Officer, I appreciate your professionalism, but I think you'll want to wait for Captain Rodriguez's assessment. There was something in her tone. Not arrogance, not desperation, but absolute certainty. It was the voice of someone who had never lost a negotiation in their life. 3 minutes past scheduled takeoff. The cabin door to this cockpit opened, and Jenkins emerged, his face pale. Behind him came Captain Rodriguez, a distinguished man in his 50s with silver hair and 30 years of aviation experience. The captain's eyes immediately found Kesha in seat 2A. He stopped mid-stride, his expression shifting from concern to something else entirely. Recognition, shock, fear. Everyone stepped back from seat 2A immediately, he ordered. Officer Martinez looked confused. Captain, we were instructed to remove this passenger for officer. Step back now. The authority in Rodriguez's voice was absolute. Both security officers moved away from Kesha's row. Janelle's livestream audience was confused. What's happening now? Why did the captain's face change? This is so weird. The businessman's video had caught Captain Rodriguez's reaction perfectly. The footage was already being shared in pilot forums and aviation industry groups. Captain Rodriguez approached Kesha's seat slowly, like someone approaching a dangerous animal. Ma'am, I sincerely apologize. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Jenkins stood behind him looking like he'd seen a ghost. The cabin fell silent except for the hum of the aircraft's auxiliary power unit. Every passenger was watching, most still recording. Kesha looked up at Captain Rodriguez with those same calm, dark eyes. Captain, I appreciate your intervention, but I think this situation has gone beyond a simple misunderstanding. She gestured toward the dozens of phones recording the scene. As you can see, this incident has been extensively documented. Multiple live streams, social media posts, and video recordings. The captain's jaw tightened as he took in the scope of the digital documentation. Every major social media platform would have this content within minutes. Ma'am, please accept my personal apology and the airline's full apology. This should never have happened. Captain Rodriguez, Kesha said softly. I believe you know who I am now. The question is, what are you prepared to do about it? Her business card still lay face up on the tray table. From his angle, the captain could read it clearly. So could the young Latina woman in 3B, who gasped audibly. The businessman in 1C strained to see the card, his camera capturing everything. His livestream viewers were demanding answers. What does the card say? Filled his chat. Janelle's confidence finally cracked. Her livestream faltered as she began to realize this wasn't going according to script. I don't understand what's happening. That's when Kesha Washington picked up her business card and held it where everyone could see. The revelation would shatter everything they thought they knew. 5 minutes past scheduled takeoff. The business card was elegant, understated, and devastating. Washington Aerospace Industries. Dr. Kesha Washington, Chief Executive Officer and Founder, Primary Contractor, Commercial Aviation Division. The businessman in 1C zoomed in with his camera, reading the card aloud for his live stream. Washington Aerospace Industries, Chief Executive Officer. His voice trailed off as the implications hit him. The chat exploded. Washington Aerospace. That's the company that leases planes to airlines. Oh snap. Wait, is this real? Captain Rodriguez stood frozen, his face drained of color. 30 years of aviation experience had taught him to recognize the names that mattered. Washington Aerospace wasn't just any contractor. They were one of the 3 largest aircraft leasing companies in North America, controlling over $12 billion in aviation assets. Ma'am, he began, his voice barely above a whisper. I had no idea. Clearly, Kesha replied calmly. She picked up her phone and opened an app showing real-time aircraft registrations. This particular aircraft tail, number N847WA, is currently under lease from Washington Aerospace Industries. Contract value $2. $3 million annually. Lease term 7 years renewable. The young Latina woman in 3B covered her mouth with both hands. She worked in aviation insurance and knew exactly what this meant. Her company insured Washington Aerospace's fleet. This woman wasn't just wealthy. She controlled a significant portion of America's commercial aviation infrastructure. Janelle's live stream had climbed to 567 viewers, but her confident commentary had died completely. She stared at the business card like it might explode. This has to be fake. Anyone can print a business card at FedEx. Officer Martinez, Kesha said, would you like me to call Washington Aerospace's 24-hour verification line? They can confirm my identity and my company's contractual relationship with this aircraft. Martinez looked from Kesha to Captain Rodriguez, uncertainty written across his weathered face. In 15 years of airport security, he never encountered a situation like this. Captain, what are your instructions? Rodriguez was calculating rapidly. If this woman was really the CEO of Washington Aerospace, this incident could end his career and potentially bankrupt the airline. But if she was running an elaborate con, he looked like a fool for believing her. Ma'am, I need to verify this information through our proper channels. Kesha nodded approvingly. Of course, professional verification is always appropriate. While you do that, perhaps you should know that this entire incident has been witnessed by. She gestured around the cabin at the forest of recording devices, approximately 800 people across multiple platforms with viewership climbing exponentially. The businessman's video had exploded across aviation forums. His follower count was climbing in real time as verified industry accounts began sharing the footage. Comments poured in from airline employees, pilots, aircraft manufacturers, and aviation executives who recognized the Washington Aerospace name. Holy, is that really Kesha Washington? One verified aviation journalist had commented. If so, this airline is about to have the worst day in corporate history. Another comment from a verified pilot account. Washington Aerospace owns half the planes I fly. This is nuclear level bad for Skylink. 7 minutes past scheduled takeoff. Jenkins finally found his voice, though it cracked slightly. Captain, even if this is legitimate, it doesn't excuse the passenger's initial refusal to cooperate with standard crew instructions. Kesha turned her attention to Jenkins with laser-focused precision. Mr. Jenkins, let me be very clear about what actually happened here. Your flight attendant made several demonstrably false accusations about my ticket validity, publicly suggested I had forged federal identification documents, and created a deliberately hostile environment based solely on her assumptions about my race and economic status. She paused, letting the weight of those words settle over the silent cabin. All of this occurred while I was legally occupying a seat I had properly purchased on an aircraft that my company owns and leases to your airline for operational use. The cabin was dead silent except for the nervous shuffling of passengers and the soft electronic hum of multiple recording devices capturing every word. Captain Rodriguez pulled out his phone and dialed a number with shaking fingers. This is Captain Rodriguez, employee ID 4847, calling from aircraft in 847WA. I need immediate verification on Washington Aerospace Industries executive leadership. Yes, I'll hold for verification. While he waited, Kesha continued speaking in that same calm, measured tone that somehow carried more authority than shouting ever could. Mr. Jenkins, according to your airline's passenger service manual, Section 12, for which I've read thoroughly given our extensive business relationship, crew members are required to verify passenger documentation through official channels before making any public accusations of fraud or document forgery. Was this protocol followed in my case? Jenkins opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. The manual was crystal clear, and everyone in the cabin knew the proper procedures hadn't been followed. Furthermore, Kesha continued, consulting her phone. Your company's employee social media policy updated just 6 months ago specifically prohibits staff members from live streaming passenger interactions without explicit consent from all parties involved. Ms. Williams has been broadcasting this incident to hundreds of viewers without my permission in direct violation of both company policy and potentially federal privacy laws. Janelle's face went ashen as she realized her live stream was still running now with 634 viewers watching her professional reputation disintegrate in real time. She frantically tried to figure out how to end the stream without making her panic obvious. Captain Rodriguez's verification call connected. Yes, this is Rodriguez with Skylink Airlines Flight SK-1247. I need to verify the identity of Dr. Kesha Washington. Yes, I'll wait for confirmation. The businessman in 1C whispered to his camera. Folks, I think we just witnessed what might become the most expensive discrimination lawsuit in aviation history. This is absolutely insane. His live stream chat was moving too fast to read individual comments. Aviation industry insiders were flooding in, sharing their knowledge about Washington Aerospace's massive contracts with major airlines across North America. 9 minutes past scheduled takeoff. Captain Rodriguez. The voice on the phone was loud enough for passengers in the first 3 rows to hear, clearly. Dr. Washington is indeed our chief executive officer and company founder. She's currently traveling to Atlanta for our quarterly board meeting with major airline partners. Is there some kind of problem with her flight? Rodriguez closed his eyes and took a deep breath. No problem, sir. Just routine passenger verification. Thank you for your assistance. He ended the call and looked at Kesha with a mixture of profound respect and barely controlled terror. Dr. Washington, on behalf of Skylink Airlines and our entire crew, I offer our most sincere and unreserved apologies. This incident should never have occurred under any circumstances. But Kesha wasn't finished. She opened another app on her phone, displaying a sophisticated dashboard of real-time social media analytics and business metrics. Captain, this incident has now been viewed over 2,000 times across various social media platforms in just the past 12 minutes. The hashtag Skylink discrimination is currently trending in Atlanta, Miami, Los Angeles, and New York. My company's public relations team has been monitoring the situation and documenting everything for potential legal proceedings. She turned the screen so he could see the analytics. Social media monitoring software displayed the viral spread of the incident across Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and specialized aviation forums. The business impact is already measurable and accelerating. Our stock ticker shows Washington Aerospace trading up to 3% as investors anticipate potential contract renegotiations or terminations. Your parent company's stock has dropped 8% in the past 10 minutes as word spreads through financial networks. The black man in 4C slowly sat down, shaking his head in amazement and quietly speaking into his own phone. Y'all are not going to believe what I just witnessed. This is the most beautiful corporate karma I've ever seen. The elderly white woman, who had been so vocally supportive of Janelle's actions earlier, was now staring at her lap, refusing to make eye contact with anyone in the cabin. 11 minutes past scheduled takeoff. Kesha's phone buzzed with an incoming call. This time, she answered immediately. Dr. Washington speaking. Yes, I'm fully aware of the situation. No, I'm still physically on the aircraft. The entire incident was recorded from multiple angles. Yes, I'll need a comprehensive report on our total exposure with Skylink Airlines by tomorrow morning. Also, please have legal prepare a full analysis of our contract termination options. She ended the call and looked directly at Captain Rodriguez with unwavering eye contact. That was my chief legal officer. Washington Aerospace currently maintains active contracts worth $847 million annually with Skylink Airlines and its subsidiaries. We lease 67 aircraft to your fleet of 196 total planes. That represents 2% of your operational capacity. The numbers hit Rodriguez like physical blows. He had never heard passenger statistics delivered with such devastating precision. Additionally, we provide maintenance contracts for another 23 aircraft in your fleet, and we're currently negotiating a $1.2 billion expansion deal for next fiscal year. Jenkins looked like he might collapse. The scope of the potential business impact was beyond anything he'd ever encountered. Dr. Washington, please tell me how we can appropriately resolve this situation. But Kesha had one more revelation that would completely shatter their understanding of the power dynamics at play. She reached into her handbag and pulled out a second business card. This one was simpler in design, but potentially more devastating in its implications. Meridian Investment Group Managing Partner, Transportation Sector Specialist. Captain Rodriguez, there's something else you should know. Washington Aerospace isn't my only business interest in the aviation industry. She opened a financial portfolio app on her phone, displaying a screen showing hundreds of different investment holdings across multiple sectors. Meridian Investment Group, which I founded 12 years ago, holds a 12.7% equity stake in Skylink Airlines' parent company, Consolidated Airways International. We're currently the third largest shareholder. The revelation hit the cabin like a thunderbolt. The businessman's live stream chat went completely insane. She owns part of the airline. This is absolutely insane. That flight attendant just discriminated against her own boss's boss. Jenkins looked like he might actually faint. Janelle's live stream suddenly cut off as she frantically tried to delete the evidence of her catastrophic mistake. Captain Rodriguez stared at Kesha in complete, stunned silence for a full 10 seconds. Dr. Washington, he finally managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. What would you like us to do? Kesha Washington, CEO of Washington Aerospace, managing partner of Meridian Investment Group, and partial owner of the very airline that had just systematically discriminated against her, smiled for the first time since boarding the aircraft. Captain, I think it's time for some serious corporate accountability. The real showdown was about to begin. 13 minutes past scheduled takeoff. Kesha opened her phone and navigated to a legal document app. Captain Rodriguez, before we discuss resolution, let me show you the relevant contractual clauses that apply to this situation. She displayed a PDF document on her screen. Washington Aerospace Standard Lease Agreement Section 47, Discrimination and Hostile Environment Provisions. Any leave found to engage in discriminatory practices against protected classes while operating leased aircraft may face immediate contract review and potential termination. Rodriguez leaned in to read the clause, his face growing paler with each word. Furthermore, Kesha continued, scrolling to another section. Meridian Investment Group's shareholder agreement includes mandatory diversity and inclusion compliance standards. Violations can trigger emergency board meetings and executive review processes. The businessman's live stream had reached 1,247 viewers. Aviation lawyers in the chat were explaining the legal implications in real time. These clauses are standard in major contracts, one verified attorney commented. She literally has them by the throat. Jenkins found his voice, though it wavered. Dr. Washington, surely we can resolve this through proper channels without involving legal contracts. Kesha's expression remained perfectly calm. Mr. Jenkins, proper channels were bypassed the moment your employee made false accusations and created a public spectacle. This incident has now been documented by multiple witnesses across several social media platforms. She opened her social media monitoring app again. Current metrics, 3,847 views across platforms, 247 shares, and growing. The hashtag #SkyLinkThese discrimination has been used 156 times in the past 15 minutes. The young Latino woman in 3B was quietly live streaming to her own followers, providing Spanish commentary for the aviation community. Her viewer count had climbed to 89 people, mostly airline industry workers, who were sharing the story across their networks. Additionally, Kesha continued, I've received 12 phone calls in the past 10 minutes from board members, legal counsel, and media representatives. This situation has already escalated beyond simple passenger service recovery. Captain Rodriguez pulled out his own phone. Dr. Washington, may I contact my regional manager to discuss immediate remediation options? Of course, but Captain, I want you to understand the full scope of what we're dealing with here. Kesha opened another app showing financial data. Washington Aerospace has 3 other major airline partners. If this incident reflects Skylink's corporate culture, I'll need to evaluate whether our business relationship aligns with our company values. The implication was nuclear. Losing Washington Aerospace as a partner could Skylink's operations within months. Rodriguez dialed his emergency management line. This is Captain Rodriguez on flight SK 1247. I need immediate patch through to Regional Director Morrison. Yes, it's urgent. Code Red passenger situation. While he waited for the connection, Kesha addressed the cabin's other passengers directly. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the extended delay. I want you to know that this situation will be resolved appropriately and documented processes will ensure similar incidents don't occur in the future. The black man in 4C spoke up. Dr. Washington, thank you for handling this with such dignity. A lot of us have been through similar situations, but we didn't have your resources to fight back. Several other passengers nodded in agreement. The middle-aged white woman in 3A who had been recording said quietly, I'm ashamed I didn't speak up earlier. This was wrong from the beginning. 15 minutes past scheduled takeoff. Rodriguez's call connected, and he was immediately patched through to Regional Director Morrison. Morrison here. Rodriguez, what's the situation? Sir, we have a passenger discrimination incident involving Dr. Kesha Washington of Washington Aerospace Industries. The silence on the other end of the line lasted 5 full seconds. Did you say Kesha Washington? The Kesha Washington? Yes, sir. She was subjected to discriminatory treatment by our flight crew, and the entire incident was live-reamed and recorded by multiple passengers. Jesus Christ, how bad is it? Rodriguez looked at Kesha, who gestured for him to put the call on speaker. Director Morrison, Kesha said clearly. This is Dr. Washington. The incident involved false accusations of ticket fraud, suggestions that I had forged federal documents, and deliberate attempts to remove me from an aircraft that my company leases to your airline. Morrison's voice was tight with controlled panic. Dr. Washington, on behalf of Skylink Airlines executive leadership, I offer our most profound apologies. This is completely unacceptable. Director Morrison, I appreciate your response. However, we need to discuss immediate corrective actions and long-term systematic changes. Kesha opened her notes app. I'm proposing 3 immediate actions. First, termination of the employee who initiated the discriminatory treatment and violated company social media policies. Second, suspension and mandatory retraining for the manager who escalated the situation without following verification protocols. Third, a public apology acknowledging the discriminatory nature of this incident. Morrison's response was immediate. Done. All 3 actions will be implemented within the hour. But Kesha wasn't finished. Additionally, I'm requiring systematic changes to prevent future incidents. Implementation of mandatory unconscious bias training for all customer F-facing employees. Revision of passenger verification procedures to prevent discriminatory profiling and establishment of real-time incident reporting systems with executive oversight. The cabin was silent except for the sound of Morrison frantically taking notes. Furthermore, Kesha continued, I want quarterly diversity metrics reported to Washington Aerospace as part of our ongoing contract relationship. If similar incidents occur, our lease agreements include provisions for immediate contract review. Janelle, who had been silent since her live stream ended, finally spoke. This is ridiculous. I was just doing my job. Anyone could have made the same mistake. The entire cabin turned to stare at her. Captain Rodriguez's expression was one of pure horror. Kesha looked at Janelle with the same calm composure she'd maintained throughout the entire ordeal. Ms. Williams, doing your job doesn't include making assumptions based on race, creating public spectacles, or live streaming passenger interactions without consent. Your actions violated multiple company policies and federal anti-discrimination laws. Morrison's voice came through the speaker sharp with authority. Williams, you're terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you from the aircraft. The finality of it hit the cabin like a physical force. That's how real progress happens. One person, one interaction, one moment of accountability at a time. 25 minutes past scheduled takeoff. As the aircraft finally began its taxi to the runway, Kesha settled back in his seat too, the seat she had rightfully occupied from the beginning. Her Hermes bag sat in her lap. Her PC Philippe watch caught the cabin light, and her business cards were safely returned to her blazer pocket. But more importantly, she had transformed a moment of discrimination into a catalyst for institutional change. The quiet power she had demonstrated would ripple through the aviation industry for years to come. The aircraft lifted off, carrying not just passengers to their destinations, but carrying forward a new standard for dignity, respect, and accountability in air travel. This was how real change happened, not through violence or vengeance, but through preparation, persistence, and the strategic application of power in service of justice. 6 months later, the transformation was measurable and profound. Skylink Airlines reported a 73% reduction in passenger discrimination complaints across their entire network. The incident reporting app had processed over 1,200 cases with 94% resolved within 24 hours through the new executive oversight system. Kesha's quarterly board meeting had led to Washington Aerospace expanding their partnership with Skylink by $340 million, the largest contract increase in the airline's history. Trust, it turned out, was not just morally right. It was profitable. The businessman from Seat 1C, David Boston, had become an unlikely advocate. His viral video was now required viewing in Skylink's training program. "I learned that being a witness means more than just recording," he said in follow-up interviews. "It means examining your own assumptions." Officer Martinez was promoted to head of Skylink's new passenger advocacy security division. His first initiative was partnering with civil rights organizations.